Okay, I think we're live. Let me know if you can see this. I'm trying to get everything configured right because I am sharing a Word document grammar for the first time, which is kind of weird. But if everything seems good, let me know. I had some camera troubles earlier, but I think we're in better shape now. Trying to get this yeah. And let me know if this is readable and a big enough font. Hello, Greg. Welcome. Oh my goodness. It has been a day. I was painting all morning. Not the fun kind of painting, though. The walls and trim kind of painting. Okay, so I think we have this up. Hello, Bip. It hopefully does not count as spoilers for the relay. I waited a month just to make sure that, it was far enough past what I was doing, but I've taken everything out that is specific to the torch. This is obviously the document I created for the torch, but I've taken everything out that should be specific enough, So there's nothing I don't know, and I'm not going to scroll through the section at the bottom that has the words in it because I'm going to keep those, but I don't want to show them because obviously it shows the words that were in the torch, and I took out the stuff that was translated in my language. So there shouldn't be anything in here that's a problem. I hope there's a couple things we're going to go over that are concepts that I had to create for the torch, but it's far enough past it that I think we're good now. Also welcome, Bib. Hi. Hello, Nemo. Welcome. Okay, so we're readable. All right, so for those of you who don't know, which I think all of you do know based off the number of people that are here and the names that are in the chat, but I did the ConLang relay at the beginning of July with my spell language that I have now named officially. It is Ausmoulau, although who knows how to pronounce that? I don't know. I still claim I can't pronounce anything, including my own stuff. But I managed to do the relay. I managed to do it with this language, and I didn't actually have to create as much stuff as I thought. So that was pretty good. But I wanted to kind of scroll through this because I made it a lot more formal, and also we haven't touched this language for a while on stream, so I thought this would be a good time to do a high-level review of what's in here and just kind of go over the new stuff I did and talk about what we're going to do next because I'm kind of at a weird crossroads spot here. Hello, welcome, Jonathan. This is a good one for you to catch because it's going to be not fully introductory, but a little bit. Okay, so let's, I guess, scroll through this roughly. It's like 21 pages. We're not going to read the whole thing, but I did name the language, which is Ausmoulau, which basically means literally words of the caretakers of life or just language of the spirits, which I thought was cool. Yeah. Exactly, Neo. It's all borrowing into English. It's fine. Welcome, Aaron. Hello. So I summed up kind of the high-level bits of the language, which we've kind of talked about a lot, right? It's a little bit of a weird language in that it hasn't changed over time because it was literally created for the goddesses to talk to the spirits, and it's the same goddesses for forever, so it hasn't really changed. I haven't filled in the sounds, but I did do the IPA class time with Ross. And so I have notes on how to get the characters in there, but I still need to figure out how to put the little symbols in there. I haven't figured that out yet. And then I'm just going to have brackets for what my romanization of it is. And I copied all my notes over. And there is a lot of stuff in here that I moved over that weren't in the torch because I left everything out of the torch that wasn't necessary. So, there's stuff in here that's not in that, so it's not a direct thing, right? Hello, Alan. Okay, so I think we're all very familiar with the sounds I have, the syllables I have. That's all fine, and that's super duper relevant right now. The notes on the phonotactics and the syllable structure and all that's fine. I need to make an actual table for this, but I just copied it over. I did add a clarifier, which I don't think I had done. I did this before the torch, but I don't think I had talked about it in the stream. I think it was between, where I decided that at least for now, I'm going to use vowel hiatus anytime things would be next to each other that aren't allowed to be next to each other from a sound perspective. Because I only allow, what is it, like closed diphthongs or something, or open diphthongs? I have it up here somewhere. Closing. Diphthongs must be closing. So mostly because I don't want to have to deal with what it would require to do the sound changes around that. Like, that's a level of, I don't know. I'm not at that level yet to try and figure those kinds of sound changes out. But so we're just going to use vowel hiatus for now to keep it neat and tidy. So like AI would be not allowed. So it'd be I guess. Or is that just because they're merged? Yeah, I think AI is allowed, but because they're part of different parts of the word and I want them to be pronounced distinctly to partially make each individual segment make sense, because there are like, because it's so polysynthetic and I keep everything so short, there's a lot of like things that could mean the same thing. And like depending on where that vowel change is, like between the morphemes, like which vowel is part of which, like it provides a little bit more clarity, I guess, to have that. So at least for now, I'm using that. If eventually I decide I want to come up with some system to like handle that, I can do that, but I think it will help a lot. And I'm not entirely sure how it's going to go into translation, because something I need to figure out for this too is, since this is going to be a plot point in the book to translate stuff that's in this language, I really need to hone in on everything that would be like a complicating factor for translating, something that could be used, like anything like that I need to make notes of. And I'm actually tempted to make like a little like game type thing if people want to attempt it, where I'm like, here's some stuff that you know about the language. Can you figure out what any of this means? Like, not like a torch, it'd be a little different, but like a weird language puzzle just to steal for plot purposes. Okay, so then I went through the main aspects of Ausmoulau, which we have the syntheticness, we have SVO, and I did add some clarifiers just to kind of try and understand what I actually have been doing, because I realized it wasn't super consistent. Yeah, yeah, Rosetta Stone type thing. Uh, yeah, it would be fun. It would be fun. I would basically be giving you, I guess, a lot of spells and be like, this is what they do. Like, you wouldn't know what any of the pieces are. You just have a bunch of those. And then I'd be like, okay, here's some other words. Like, what do you think these do? You know, trying to do all of that. But yes, where was it? Yeah, so SVO, but then I made a note that, where is it? How imperative commands are sandwiched. Okay, I guess it wasn't that weird in here. There's nothing that super duper weird. And then I do have some multi-clausal word order stuff at the end of the grammar, which is sort of different. We're sort of head initial, but within a noun compounding, it's head final, because I realized all the compounds I had made were head final, I think. So they're just going to be different, which I think is fine, right? That's fine. I have the syntactic alignment, which is great. Subject to the verb is unmarked. Direct object is marked accusative, which I realized I was also not remembering to do it first. Then I had to go back and do all of that, which is fine. So then I had made a note on not presentation. What's the word? Pronunciation, as an attempt to give someone at least a hint of a guide, which was mostly just read each individual section phonetically. That was basically the vibe of it, which I highlighted a few things that I think were kind of new concepts or things I hadn't had to figure out before, as something that, you know, other people didn't have to try and figure out. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, Jonathan. Making the backwards compounds. I feel like it seems like a reasonable thing to accidentally do. But yeah, so I had another note here mentioning the vowel hiatus for doing that with pronunciation. So like saying my egg, which my is so and egg is ul, would be so ul, and you wouldn't like merge the O and the UI sounds. Also because mine wouldn't allow 3 vowels together. Like, that's not allowed for the sound system, so they would need to be separate unless I was going to merge them. So that's all. fine. Notes on our nouns. I'm not going to go over this too much. Good point, Nemo. It could be borrowing from something else. Although I don't know what the goddesses would have borrowed from, you know? I just wrote the order of how you would compound nouns, so like how you would merge all the pieces together, which there's like a better chart later on, so we don't need to go over it, but it's just basically the rules on how you can incorporate things, what things can't be incorporated, and all of that since it's polysynthetic. I made a note on compounding, which is just explaining that we compound a lot of things. And then I made a decision, which I think makes sense, that when I build nouns, things that are natural, I'm going to try to have there be distinct like morphemes for those things, like even more so than like English does. But for things that are unnatural, they would have to be heavily compounded because they don't have a lot of specific words for that, right? Because like if you imagine, you know, goddesses working with the spirits, like whatever, right? Back before human society was super developed, they're not going to have words for like a car, right? Like they're not going to have a distinct morpheme that just means that. So they'd have to build it through compounding. So my example here that I use is city, which if I attempt to pronounce it, it's Nriosi Vialmujfoy, which basically translates literally to great container, place of many great containers, which is a city, which is fun. Hello, Robo Game Studios. I don't think I've seen you about here. We have our noun cases, which are pretty basic, nothing fancy there. Added more like description because that seemed to be like a grammar thing to do. I still have some notes that we might need to deal with at some point when I start building a lot of spells. Have all the stuff on plurality, which is cool. And I made some like examples. It's kind of cool. Now there's real examples with real words, which is kind of fun. So like Nisan is single cloth, Seeson is multiple cloths, and then I also have the versions with like spirits, which is like Nao Mao and Sao Mao, which is fun. I have possession, and I added a bunch of like little examples because the way the pronouns work is kind of weird. So like we have speaker inclusive, which is like belonging to some, myself included, speaker inclusive singular, so that's like my, speaker inclusive plural, which is our, and then speaker exclusive animate, so belonging to some animates, myself not included, speaker exclusive animate singular, which is equivalent to like hers, his, yours, and then speaker exclusive animate plural, which is equivalent to theirs or y'all's, which is fun. And I think I missed, I didn't include any examples, I think, for inanimates, but I just think it's fun. There's no you in this language. There's no way to say you, because why would a speaker who's commanding spirits need to say you? They have to call them by name, right? So they're always addressed by a name, which is kind of fun. Thank you, Robo Game Studios. Thank you. I'm glad it's helpful. It's helpful for me, which is why I do it in the first place. And then I have a mark on possession, so how to say like the fireplace is fire, which is cool. Welcome from Haika. We're just going over like the high level grammar, and I'm gonna try to talk about the things that I changed or are new after doing the relay, and then we're gonna get into some new stuff. Let's see. Adjectives. We had talked before about adjectives. There was a whole movement, right, where you all were like, hashtag save the adjectives, I think. And I did end up fleshing that out a little bit beforehand, basically of how those would work. And basically, there's a predicative stative verb such as like happies, which can be used directly as an adjective. And so nouns marked with a reflexive case can also be used as adjectives. So some of the examples I have is like to say like I am wet, or wet me, like person that is, me that is a person that is wet. You would do it like this. So like liquid reflexive. So the state of being wet, right? And then I have for another person, like Mary is wet. You would say like Mary in the vocative to call them out as the subject, and then liquid reflexive. And then she. So like Mary wet she, kind of, which is weird, but that's kind of the vibe. And then I have one for to say happy plant, where plant is an actual like predicative verb. Then you would just say that plant. So happy's plant is happy plant. I don't know. I thought that gave a couple of options and was kind of interesting. And then also an attributive verb or an adjective can then be incorporated into a proper noun or into a non-proper noun as a determiner. So I added it into all the things that can be incorporated because it makes sense. Like all the noun bits get incorporated. So if you were saying wet person, a liquid reflexive person, wet person is Eva Trau. So I thought that worked for adjectives. Now we have a system to build adjectives, which will be helpful. Another thing I set up is comparator adjectives specifically. So in order to apply like an adjective about someone in comparison to something else, that all becomes part of the incorporated blob too. So I have a more, equal, or less than type of comparator. And so some of the examples is you can basically say they are a more than me happy person would be, you know, first person singular, more happy's person. So you just, it all gets, I've already forgotten the word again, incorporated. So I have those, which are fun. And then in the case of a proper noun, because you remember you can incorporate a proper noun. So what you would say is like Mary vocative, first person singular, whatever, and then first person singular, inanimate, more happies. That should probably be animate. But anyway, you would basically just use the pronoun and then call them out in the subject marker for the proper noun, which I think works. And then the subject could also be dropped. Like if you're talking to someone or it's obvious, it could be dropped. So that gives us a lot of flexibility there. I don't know how much this is going to come up in spells specifically, right? This is more like rounding out the language type of a thing that I could always use for some interesting bits. But like, I don't know why you would have a comparative spell. Why is Mary in the vocative here? So the way that you can mark a subject or like a topic of a statement is you would call them out with the vocative at the beginning. So like if you're talking to someone or telling someone to do something, you can call them out. But also in the case of using a proper noun, you would call them out with the vocative to mark them as that, which I think makes sense. Because it just implies that that's, you know, what we're calling in here. It could be silly. It could be stupid. I don't know. I kind of had to do this without any external feedback, so who knows? And then we've talked about determiners, right? Those are all the things that get incorporated. But what if you're referring to a proper noun while speaking to someone else? Then the ordering would change. So the person you're speaking to, that topic marker would go first. And then if it was something that was in the like verb that had been incorporated for the noun in there, or just like a noun in general, it would go immediately beforehand. So the ordering would sort of imply that. Probably. Context clues, I think. I think that would work. But yes, so we have all of our determiners, so all the things that can be incorporated with their direct objects. So we have our spatial determiners, so like this something, that far away something. We have the distributed ones, all or many, which I added, I think. So you can say like all of something or many of something, and I can add more as needed. So like all the plants, many plants, that sort of thing. So then all of our pronouns, which are the same as like the possessive markers, that's all fine. We'll skip that. Prepositional markers, those are prepositional markers, right? We have dative, lative ones, locative ones, and instrumental ones, which is fine. Okay, here's the cool thing. So for verbs, I put together this like bulleted list to kind of show the order and like what the parts are. So like if you have a verb, right, you have the subject, then the verb stem, then the post verb. But the verb stem gets built of the base verb and then the direct object. But then each of those has a bunch of other things incorporated. So like these are all the things in one word that could be all incorporated into one word, which I just think is cool to look at it. Like you could build some really long words with this, which I definitely had to do at a number of times in the relay. I'm very excited for that to go live so that we can like go through it here because I don't know, I think it'll be fun. Let's see. Subject, that's fine. We've talked about this before, right? It can be dropped if it is indicated separately with a topic marker, right? So here in the spell, imvash amai vlidu, that's imva vocative and then speaker imperative. So I'm commanding you, imva, to cause fire, right? And you can drop it before fire. There doesn't have to be the subject marker. And then I just have some notes on that to make it clear, which I think is fine, and how you would like understand what it means in different contexts, which again won't really come up at all in spell, so I'm not too worried about it here. Let's see, verb stems. This is all just going through the stuff before, right? So these are all of our action morphemes to build our actual verbs. Yeah, Nemo and Jonathan. I'm also very curious to see it. I don't want to give anything away, but like I've heard whispers of like how it went for different people, and I'm very curious to see. Yeah, we'll have to see. But yeah, action morphemes for building verbs, which is definitely fun. I didn't end up like creating very many base verbs. Like everything that I have done for the most part so far has been through using these morphemes because I think they're fun. I have some examples using fire, and then I talk about the base verbalizer and a bunch of little examples that I put together. So like cause this liquid to bubble, put out fire, the candles, or put out the candles, burn my book, tunnel through this mountain, right? And like look at me actually having like examples that have built up based off earlier things. Like I'm really excited to ask the person that went after me like how much of a dumpster fire this grammar was, because like I literally spent 8 hours putting this together, and you all know I already had like that grammar doc with a lot of stuff in it, and it took me 8 hours to put everything together in here. Like I don't know, it was crazy. It was already very weird by step 3. Yeah, I think I was step 7. I think that's right. Bib was right before me, and then I went, and then I can't remember who went after me. Yeah, I'm sure it's gonna be weird. I'm sure it's gonna be very weird. I don't know how the reveal happens. Like, I don't know if all of us that are in the relay get like an early reveal, or if it all is just gonna go live and we're all just gonna sit there on YouTube and be like, what the? I don't know. It'll be cool. But yes, so going through the post verb, talking about the tenses, I decided, and this is advice that I got before the relay from Jessie, but she had basically told me to not fall into the trap of feeling like I need to expand my language in ideal ways for the relay, like as a bit of advice for someone who doesn't have like a fully fleshed out language tackling a relay. And to really remember the sort of like core pieces of like what I was trying to do here and try and stay true to that instead of just trying to make the easiest way to handle the torch into the language, right? So that's something that I think really helped me mentally with accomplishing this, because I was like, okay, like really focusing on how what I have can be used to address this without trying to just like, I don't know, it helped a lot. So one of the notes I have here is that like I've sort of expanded the future tense, and we had talked about this a little bit like briefly about how I wanted to do this, but basically there is things that are currently true and are the current state of things, right, which is your default tense, which is unmarked. And then you have the future tense, which is more than just the future. It just basically means something that is not currently true, right? So it can be used for a lot of different things, which do I have? Yeah, so I have more examples in the clausal section, but I also have like, you could use it to mark a condition or like a bounded action as the result of something. So like do this verb, and then there can be another future tense thing that would then mean this is the thing that will happen but is not currently true once you do this. It can be used to order actions, and it can be used to just, again, say something will happen in the future. So like it kind of, there's a lot of context clues having to be used there. Let's see. Erin says it didn't get easier. Yeah. I think it's just all at once, but I wasn't in last year's. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Bib was in it last year, so if you're still listening, Bib, while you're like running about doing your stuff, if you want to chime in and let us know how we're gonna find out how it went, like if we'll get, I don't know, any sort of like sneak peek exposure to it or something. I don't know. When's the Duolingo course coming out? No. Who would even want to learn this? I don't know. I feel like that'd be weird, especially given that I can't even pronounce it. Like, you have to like, I don't know. I don't know. No. Okay. So then aspects, we still have some of our basic ones, right? Like saying things are iterative, inceptive, or cesative. So like this action is happening repeatedly or habitually, etc., etc. And then I have marks still for telic and durative, but I haven't decided exactly how that's going to work now with the clausal grammar, now that I've actually thought about that a little bit, because I don't know if we'll actually need to mark it at all. Like, I might just delete these. Like, they might be, like, implied, but they might not be directly called out, perhaps. Oh, Bib chimed in. Okay. Unless George does something different this year, we all just find out when the playlist goes live. Okay. Okay, fair. That makes sense. I feel like I'm going to be hitting you up, Bib, and being like, how much did I trash your language? Because it's literally the first time I've actually looked at another, like, grammar or conlang or tried to do anything like this, other than that, like, really simple example we did before that was, like, overly simple. So hopefully I did it justice and you don't watch it and you're like, what is up with this person who knows no things? We'll see. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so I just go through that. That's fine. We have our intensifiers, which are like really core for the spells, so that's fine. Which I feel like, I don't know. I feel like those would definitely, as a full language, would be used more than just saying like how intense like the imperative is of a command. I feel like they would be used for a lot of other things, but that's obviously the most relevant for me. Ooh, adverbs. We have some adverbs. I created a system for adding those. So we have time-consumingly, and basically I wanted to set this up as like a system to be able to like create adverbs. I haven't had to create many yet. I'm not entirely sure how much this will be relevant in the spells themselves, but we have time-consumingly. We can add some other ones, and they have essentially just get incorporated in. So like weave, base, and then thico, which is my abbreviation for the time-consumingly adverb, they just get pulled in on the end to imply the manner. We did have adverbs in our like where they would go. We just hadn't added any yet. Let's see. Having your very first experience working with someone else's conlang with one of Bib's is quite interesting. I feel like Bib was really nice to me because he also knew that I know no things. So I feel like his grammar was very like, I don't know. I feel like it was very polished and well put together. I don't know if that's just, I don't know. I mean, again, it's the only one I've really looked at, so I don't really know, but I feel like it was very like for a toddler, like here you go, which is nice. But no, it was very cool. There was some weird stuff in it. I did like definitely stare at a wall and regret all my life choices a few times, but mostly it was fine. Though in my first relay, I followed UNLWS, which was also a lot. I don't know what that is. Aaron had to deal with Miles. Yeah. Yes. No, it was very good. I am very glad that I was following Bib. It was very helpful. I'd sort of hoped that it was going to be, what's Bib's language that's polysynthetic? I was minorly hoping that he was going to give me a polysynthetic language because I didn't know which one he was doing. And then I could just be like, oh, well, it's sort of the same. And then if there's anything I was missing, I could be like, well, how did Bib do it right here? But alas. Bib and Jessie are the ones I'd expect to have the best grammar doc. Oh, I'm sure. I am sure. Yes. Oh, a Lothwey. Yes, that's it. I was sort of thinking maybe it would be a Lothwey, because I think, is that what Bib did last year? I don't remember. But it's not super relevant. But yeah, I was mightily hoping that I'd be following that. And then it would at least, like, I would understand the way a polysynthetic language works, right? So I'd be like, oh, well, it should be easier for me to understand another one, right? I don't know. It turned out fine, so I think it's okay. Unless I butchered it and it wasn't fine, and I just don't know, but I think it was fine. Yes. So, yes. And I also built a way to create things into adverbs and all of that, which I think is good. Numbers is something I knew I would have to figure out that I thought about beforehand. Hold on. UNLWS is a two-dimensional, non-linear, non-spoken conlang. Basically, imagine a bunch of interconnected branching squiggles filling the page. Ugh. Oh no. Oh no. That would kill me. I would not be able to do that. Bib says I wouldn't dare unleash a Lothwey on a newbie. Is it that bad though? Like, is it that like bad compared to like another polysynthetic language? Is it not like one polysynthetic to another polysynthetic is a little easier? Is that not like, am I just completely unaware of how that works? Or is it what is it, like fusional versus like agglutinative or something? That's a concept, right? Is it very like finicky and messy? I don't think I'd ever partake in a relay with non-spoken conlangs. I'd die. I mean, like, technically this I don't know how to pronounce this, but yeah, something that like isn't meant to be spoken or pronounced at all. Yeah, I do the it's basically like code breaking at that point, really. Yeah. I don't know. But yes, so numbers. The concept I came up with numbers beforehand because like that was one of the big things that I knew I didn't have at all, like a concept of adjectives and a concept of numbers that I was like, I should figure these out beforehand, right? So what I decided to come up with numbers is instead of actually adding numbers, which I don't think it makes sense for goddesses speaking to spirits, like to have a number system, like I don't think that makes sense. So what I added was a way to basically refer to something that is countable. So it's almost like an adjective, right? Where you can say like similar to the count of this or has the same count of this, right? So you can refer to something with the compound that basically means like countable, which is mu. And so the example I gave is neusio means leaf and lech means clover. So to say the number 3, you would say lech neusio mu or clover leaf number, meaning the number of leaves of a clover or simply 3. And obviously that's not the most specific thing ever, but I thought that fit the language well and was fun. Polysynthetic doesn't actually have a consistent definition. Oh, okay. So they can be very, very different. I am very unfamiliar with the types of ways that things can be polysynthetic. I feel like my knowledge of polysynthetic was just one of the first streams I was like, I want to make something that does this. And they were like, that's polysynthetic. And I was like, great, I'll write that down. I don't know. Yeah. Oh, you like the number system, Nemo. Thank you. I thought it was fun. It like, you know, it kept with the spirit of the language while adding a way to say things, you know? I think it's cool. I also added a note on negation, and this didn't really come up anywhere. I just wanted to add the note for me of how that would work. And again, I don't know for sure if this is going to stay, but basically it adds an A at the end, which if that creates an invalid diphthong, the orders can be switched or it can be done through vowel hiatus. And that's mainly because early on I was like, oh, I'm going to do this by just like sticking an A in the middle. But then I was like, oh, that's really dumb. So then I'm like, oh, well, if it messes up the order, that's where it would switch the ordering if it's not valid in the language anymore. So like that's how I got away with that, or pretended I got away with that. And then I realized later down the road, once I was like, okay, we can do vowel hiatus to deal with these problems. I'm like, oh, that would have been a better way to deal with negation. So for now, there's just both. And I think it's fine. How do you do non-integers? What do you mean by that? By a non-integer? Like, you can, there's ways to refer to like many or all of or some of. I do have that further up. where it's not a clear, specific number. The concept of numbers is quite novel. Love the pun. I like the spirit of the language. Love it. Fractions, negative numbers. I don't necessarily know. I think like fractions, the best they could do would be like saying half of something. Like there would be a way to say that, or part of something, but I don't think there would be an overly specific way to do it. You might do some sort of complicated thing implying like countable, like cloverleaf number part of something, which might imply like that portion of something, right? Like you'd have to like finagle something weird like that. And then for negative numbers, you'd probably just like negate it, like not 5, would be my guess. I like the idea of using metathesis to stay within your phonotactics and give some variety in marking. Metathesis. Metathesis. I don't know what that word means. Is that just like inserting things in the middle or like changing order? Or is that just shenanigans? I'm not sure what that word means. We had decided beforehand that the imperatives before, I don't know if any of y'all remember the psychosis that was going on in my brain where I decided that imperatives were going to be like mood verbs and there was going to be a thing that like they're verbs, but they're like for a mood. That was very dumb. I talked to Jessie with that and she was like, what are you talking about? But so they're just markers, right? And they can take other stuff on them. So I included a whole section mostly because I wanted to. Obviously, there were no spells in this relay, but I was like, we need to put this in here anyway. Just to kind of understand, I feel like the way the language was created to be used, which I think helps understand it better. So I documented out some of the stuff we have here for using imperatives for spells. So like having the spell, we have all the bits. Like you can start with imvash, which is, imba being the spirit we're commanding, right? And then you can say like amai, which is, I welcome you to, like, you can do this if you want, or all the way up to like, I'm forcing you to do this, right? Which is amai cha. And then I have some of the basic spells here. So like fire creation spell, which is one of the first ones we created, which is imvash amai vlidu, which is imva, I welcome you to create fire. And then I did a find a rope spell, which was, where do I have this? Imvash, Amaiwan, Shravi Frawoch, Lal Mujoth. Can't pronounce anything. But essentially, Imva, I command you to find, rope inside the building or whatever. So I put some examples in there because it'd be fun. Let's see. Okay, so metathesis is, or metathesis? I want to say metathesis because I feel like thesis is a word, but I feel like metathesis could also, I don't know. It doesn't matter. I can't pronounce anything anyway, and if you tell me how it's pronounced, I will forget. But yeah, to swap them, yeah, I think it's fun. I did the like IPA vowel class with Ross, but I don't know what the is that just like, I don't know. I'm gonna pretend I know how to read things. Anyway. Okay, so clausal grammar. This took a while for me to figure out and to put together, and I mostly had to just sit back and like, I knew I was going to need to use different types of clauses that aren't just like a verb or you do a verb like with the spells, but I wanted to keep it within the spirit of the language, right? Okay, just where the stress is not proper IP. Okay, good. Yes. Metathesis? That's how you do stress. Okay. So instead of creating a bunch of words to like mark which parts of a clause it was or to do anything like that and to try and develop all that, what I decided to do was just, there's no definitive mechanism for indicating the exact relationship between like subordinate clauses and the main clause. Metathesis. I like a bib. And that this sort of clausal relationship has to be derived from context clues. And no promises I worded anything correctly here because I don't know like the actual anything with this. Like if there's real words for this kind of stuff, I don't know. But I came up with some examples of ways that I think that you could build sentences and how you would interpret the lengths between the like main and subordinate clauses. So the first example I have is when you have a like future subordinate verb clause, which is typically going to be interpreted as like a statement that happens after the main verb clause. So if we have the statement like, I start washing the dog and then I clean the house, or I start washing the dog in the future, right? So you have that future case there, and then I clean the house. This I clean the house is your main verb, right? Because it's at the end. So that would likely mean I clean the house, and then because you just have a future case before it, then that would typically mean and then, right? So it's a thing that just happens after. So I clean the house, then I start washing the dog, right? And that kind of makes sense in context to interpret it like that. The next example I have is basically the same thing, but without the intro. So instead of I start, right, that's what the intro is. It means like the inceptive one or whatever. Like I start washing the dog in the future, clean the house, right? Here we have still I clean the house, but it's just I wash the dog in the future. So it would likely mean a conditional or a like consequence relationship, right? Like I clean the house until I wash the dog, or I clean the house resulting in the dog being washed, right? And you just kind of interpret that as whatever makes the most sense contextually, but like not having that then you start it, right? Like this and then this future thing starts. If it's just this and this is in the future would imply like a condition or consequence. And this is here where I don't think I actually need that like what are the two cases I have, like the durative and is it telic, where they're bounded by a duration and bounded by a condition. I don't think I actually need those anymore, and I think I'm going to scratch those because I can just imply them with this clause structure, and it, I think, covers things. And then the next example I have is basically instead of a future case, you just have a subordinate verb and a main verb. So I wash the dog, I clean the house. And that would typically mean that something else is happening in addition to the main one. So I clean the house and wash the dog. And that's how you would build those. And then the fourth example I have is the same thing, but you add an imperative at the beginning. So that would sort of mean like, the main imperative being like, you command me, and then main verb is I clean the house, and then subordinate is I wash the dog. And this would probably mean you command me to clean the house, but I wash the dog. Potentially, right? It could be in a command for both too. You could also negate the subordinate verb for that, or like negate the main verb or something. I don't know. It's a little unspecific, which could also cause fun translation problems if that became relevant. And then the last example I had was that same thing, but adding a main imperative, which would be you command me, I wash the dog, I clean the house, which would be you command me to clean the house and wash the dog, because they're both being commanded, right? Whereas in this one, that imperative only applies to the main verb. So I'm commanding you to clean the house, but the imperative isn't on the subordinate verb. Maybe. I don't know if that sounds completely wackadoodle. Like, please be very clear that I know nothing about clausal grammar. And so I did this. Yeah. I'm curious what you all think of that, or if you think, because like, again, this is something that I came up with like as the most direct way to deal with clausal grammar, but like if I decide I want to change this in the future, I absolutely can. Oh, bye, Aaron. Good luck. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense. And again, I don't think the clauses are like clausal grammar is going to be that relevant for the spells. To an extent, it could be, right? Like I feel like the goddesses would use a lot of this for really complex spells, but like the ones that would be documented and people would have like learned and figured out, right? Like the human witches or whatever would be a lot more limited, and I think they'd be simpler to be more reusable, but maybe, I don't know. So that's basically what I have there. So I can scroll back up to the top. So the goal now, right? Because that's sort of where we are. I have a few options of what to do now, and I'm not entirely sure which way I want to go about it. So I have expanded the grammar and the structure of the language a lot since I had originally created everything in the code to sort of hold these. Which let me actually hold on. Let me switch and show you. Where is it? Spell. Yes, let me share screen. Okay, share screen, window, IntelliJ. All right, so what I did before was I basically had a series of nested objects in my Java code to hold the spells, which started out with a very, very simple, predictable structure, right? So I had you'd have a spell and it would have the verb root, your action morpheme, your possessive determiner, spatial determiner, right? Like everything in order. It can hold those optionally, or a list of them if it could have a list. So like it could have a list of noun phrases. And then it had like some methods within that to build all the pieces together and to do all of that together, which it's not too complicated. It's not that much code in here. But then like each individual piece has like, its own subbits, right? So these are all the things that can go into like noun phrase part, and it could eventually have like, if I wanted to change things or add anything like that, I could do that in here. But this is all obviously kind of old. So I could either start from scratch and recreate this, keeping in mind that it's going to be a little bit more like the structure will be limited, right? Which I have like all of my little like aspect markers that I need to add what they actually are and all the extra stuff that I've come up with, right? So I could either do that. I've also considered doing some sort of like abbreviation translation where instead of it knowing the structure like this, and I have to create objects like, where's my list of spells? Here. No. Here. Right, where I can create a spell and it has all the different parts. So like it has the verb root is fire, the action morpheme is causative. Like I could do it instead of this where there's a set structure where I could give it just the abbreviations, like where all the pieces are like in those brackets, and it could know what all of those grammatical pieces are. And then it could translate that for me. And so I would have to personally know how it all goes together, right? Like I would need to know the grammar to know what are the options, how do I put them together? Whereas like this, right, like it knows the ordering and how to combine it for me. And I just have to stick the pieces in there. And most of these are like enums. So like there's set lists of like, I can only put one of the actual defined spatial determiners in there as a spatial determiner, right? But if I did it where just like it would know like what scroll down to one of them real quick. You can't see this other screen. But like if I put SG, right? That means singular, and it would know to just stick an N or an I in there depending on what's before and after. So like it would just, it's two different directions of going about it, right? Whether it basically can translate it for me, or, I mean, I could alternatively not need to use the code for this at all, and I could just do it all manually, which I feel like I understand it way more than I ever expected to understand it, so that's an option too. So I want you all to keep in mind those three options. Let me check the chat real quick. Is this linguistics class or programming class? I'm not teaching you how to program it. This is just how I have it structured because I'm a programmer. Combo 2 for 1. Fictional or actual? Fictional language, actual program. Yeah, basically. Yeah, I mean this code is written in Java because that's what I know how to code the best. But yes, so those are the three options, right? Either this super object-oriented spell structure, right, where I have to create the objects and then I can build the objects and then that's the spells, or I can do it like where I just teach it to translate it from like the abbreviations for me, or I could do it all manually and just store it in here, right? Like that's an option too. I know a lot of people use, what is it like? Is Vulgarlang a thing? I think there's like a tool that people use to store bits and pieces of their language or something, which I don't know if I want to deal with that, given that I really like using this for the generative part of like, I have all of my like rules in here for what sounds can go together, what can't go together. Like it can build morphemes for me that I can pull from. It can generate like names based off all my rules. Is anyone that's currently in the chat like not familiar with my weird code stuff at all? Because I can do like a really brief show you just what the morpheme part looks like. Use Vulgarlang, yeah. I think don't David and Jesse use that for the languages they're building for their little critters on the Langtime streams? I think they use that to some extent to put stuff in there. I don't remember though. I've heard people talk about Vulgarlang many times, but I still have no idea what it is. They do not. Okay. They use something because they've talked about putting something in a tool. Because like I know that you have all their documents. Lexergy. Yes, that is the one I'm thinking of, Jonathan. Yes. I knew they like put things in something somewhere. Lexergy. Okay. Yeah. But again, I could keep everything in here. I don't know. Those are options. But once we decide on that and get it set up, I think what I need to do next, now that I think the grammar is basically done, you know, like I think if we come up to other things, we can add them. But I think we will be at the point like where we will have fleshed out the grammar and it will be like good. I want to start building up spells again because we have a number of spells here. We don't have a ton. But I want to start building them up more. I want to start building up one of the, what's it going to be? Like the various like grimoires and like spell books that they're going to have and start looking at how translation is going to work, what the problems are going to be. Cause like the way the language works is going to impact the plot of the book a decent bit, right? Cause like I know what they need to do because it's kind of like a heist plot, right? And they have to basically reverse certain sealing spells and other spells that were made on this like sealed door thing in a temple, right? That's sort of what they have to do in the book. But in order to do that, they need to find, like, they basically get a giant grimoire that is filled with this spell language, except it's not actually the spell language because this language does not have a written language, right? What it has is there's a code language that it's written in, which is a combination of like, what is it? Like a syllabary and then where you can have like symbols that represent a whole word or a syllable or just a letter. And it kind of depends on both who's writing it and where the pieces are coming from, like what they're using it for. Like sometimes they might use a character to be a whole like morpheme or syllable, or it could just be for a letter of it, or it could be for a whole spell, right? Like they have different like code-based notation system variations of this to represent the spells because it's like secret society. They keep it all secret. They don't want people to be able to understand it or read it if they come across the book. And I'm not going to actually create that because no. But I need to understand like what the high level concepts are so I can figure out what it would look like to them. And essentially they are going to be given a grimoire from someone who is originally involved in casting that sealing spell originally. So they have to try and figure out, okay, where in the book even is this spell? And then once they figure out where it is, they have to understand it and then figure out how to undo it, essentially, right? And again, this is all by people who are not like, none of these people actually speak the language, right? So I need to come up with those initial sets of what the spells are going to be that they know beforehand, which ones they're going to acquire through various like plot related activities of like, oh, well, let's go steal this one grimoire that's partially translated from so-and-so's office, or let's go do this other thing, right? And how those are going to give them all the breadcrumbs to be able to translate this final thing. And then also based off what they're looking for and what those pieces are and how the language is constructed, which things are going to look like they might be the right thing, but they're not, and what are those actually going to do, right? Like there's got to start figuring that stuff out, which is going to be a hot mess, I think. Let's see. Greg is voting for option 2, feed it shortcuts and it spits out your spell. Okay. Sounds like Japanese with 3 intertwined scripts. Could be. Yeah, I'm not super familiar with the Japanese scripts, but yeah, it could be. It's going to be shenanigans like that, where they can't just look at it and once they learn how to pronounce the symbols, they can't just say it, right? So there's going to have to be a lot of like, experimentation with it. So if we wanted to create something where it just translates the section for us, what I basically need to do is just build basically a library of what all the abbreviations map to, right? So essentially like not the glossary, like the dictionary, I guess. So basically the plot of the book is a conlang relay. A little bit, honestly, right? Which again, you could sort of see why I ended up getting into all of this stuff to do it. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting. And like, I am going to have to, I think, build a lot of spells and then look at like, honestly, I feel like it's a little overwhelming trying to figure out how I would do it because I need to almost work backwards from that end spell of what that would actually be and then be like, okay, how can they figure out these components? What spells could I create that might have some of those? And how do I work those into the plot? And like, yeah, just basically write a dictionary, no pressure. Yeah. But yeah, so if all of these pieces, like I can define like prox is this, ref is this, and then basically it would just parse and it would basically split the string I inputted on the brackets. And then for each of those individual components, it would then look up in the dictionary, okay, what is this actually mapped to? And it would have to have a way for some of them to be like, okay, well, if the thing before it is a vowel or not a vowel, then use this variation of it. If it's at the beginning, use this. Like, it won't be able to be just a direct library, like, lookup. Yeah. Which will be interesting. Like, it'll have to have... I don't think I can even just do it from like left to right, like where it can give the previous bits to the next bit. It might need to have like look ahead capabilities too, which like it will be complicated to write that code a little bit. Having the English version of spells does help. Yeah, absolutely. So if I do that, yeah. It'll probably have to be everything in the dictionary is the symbol, right, that it's going to be inserted into. It'll have to be probably have a method that takes like the rest of it. Because it might not need to know anything other than is the next thing a space? Because we can like for the vowel hiatus, like it can do that in the next part. It doesn't necessarily need to know what comes next that way. So it might actually not be that bad. So we're going full NLP. Perhaps we might be. Yes. So that would mean a lot of this gets deleted. Which I think is fine given that most of it's incorrect now anyway and very out of date. And then, yeah, where's my spell library? Yeah, because my spell book doesn't have a lot of spells right now. It just has some example ones here, like, a disinflame spell, a magic pool spell, incorporate ingredient spell, right? Like little things like that. Yes, I think that's what we need to do, right? Like, I think that makes sense. I mean, are you all game for me doing that on stream, or do you want me to like start building spells? Because I can do one of two things. Let's do a vote. Either I can start building that code now to translate the like abbreviation. There's a word for that. Is it the gloss? Like a glossed version of the spell into the actual full translation. Is that the term I want? But like to build out that code now, because we can start doing that right now. Or I can start building out like what some of the spells would be, like what those glosses of the spells would be, and then we'll figure out how to actually have the code handle those separately. So let's get a vote of which you would prefer. Okay, yes, it's a gloss. Okay, I thought so. But, you know, Greg's voting for building out the specific spells. Does anyone else have an opinion? Yeah, because we'll need to... It'll be slightly annoying because I won't be able to pull up both the Word doc and the IntelliJ at the same time. I won't be able to show those both for you. Unless I did like a weird... No, because the screen share I feel like wouldn't work very well. I could make it like smaller and have them be on top of each other. But what we'd probably just do is work in the Word doc so that we're in one document and just be like moving around a lot to figure it out. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Do we have any other votes? Bib says, I know nothing about coding, so I vote the latter. Okay, so we have 2 votes for the latter. So let's go ahead and just start on that. Okay, same. Okay, cool. I will try and do that off screen at some point so that we don't have to worry about it. Okay, everyone's on board. So let me switch back over to the Word doc, and where am I going to want to put this? Let me add a lot of space before the dictionary part, and we can do it down there. Okay. Stop sharing that screen. Share screen. Back to the Word doc. Okay. So, wow, those are weird looking. Copy pasted without all the coloring. All right. So I think the way that we're going to want to do this is... Let's write out the lists of the different grimoires we're going to have, just to give us like context of what spells might be in different ones. And then we can maybe start with the final spell. We might change it, but maybe we start with that and then work backwards a little bit or think of some practicality ones. I think that will make sense. So let's start a table. We're going to want the... Let's see. We're going to want which book it's in, or like where the source of it is, right? We're going to want to know what it does. Actually, what it does, I guess. And then we're going to want the gloss for it that we'll have to figure out. So, and actually, let us delete column. Let's just have it be like this. Whoa. Yeah. And then we can just have different sections for the different grimoires. So the ones that we are going to have is the first one will be the main character's personal grimoire, which... Oh, God. Do I have... Hold on just a second. Do I have... Okay. Bible for the book. Let's see, where is it? Settings, characters. We want their book. Where is... I feel like I have this documented somewhere now. I don't know where it is. We don't want one of the characters. Magic. Okay. So it's the magic section. Let's flip to the spells. We don't want the potion system. I thought I had this in here because I know I came up with it before, like the names of some of the books. Magic realm, crystals, planets, animals, dual-natured goddesses, witches. Do I not have it in here? Oh, that's a pain. Okay. This is my problem that I always have with world buildings. I can't remember where I have things. I think I was playing with Campfire. So let me go to Campfire. Because basically the first one is going to be our main character's, like, she's like an alchemist. So it's like a household alchemist's spellbook type of thing. And this one is going to be the most different than the other ones because it's not like managed by the university. So there's like the academy managed secret society oriented spells, and then there's the ones that are more from the you could think of them more like the hedge witch variety, right? The more like unmanaged, less bureaucratic side of like small people out in villages on their own working through these spells and handing them down through generations versus like what the secret society and then the academies are managing. So they have very different vibes. Oh god, hold on one second. The hearth magic. Yeah, that's sort of the vibe. So this one is going to be where we're going to have a lot more of the spells that are like the welcome, maybe even the beseech level, whereas the academy spells are going to be more based off like forcing them to do stuff, right? There's less of that like interacting with nature type of thing. This is not it. This is not it. Campfire, writing. Why is this so weird? I don't know how to use this. Okay, whatever. I'm gonna give up on it. I have fancy names for this stuff somewhere. That's why I have everything ordered in Obsidian. Otherwise, I'll always forget. Yeah, fair. Fair. I am like in a weird spot right now with my world building where I've done it differently for every project, and every project has been in multiple forms. So like I'll have a collection of notebooks that's like version 1, and then I'll try an online tool, and then I'll go back to doing it on paper, and like hold on one second. Everything's fine. Sorry. I heard a scream, and it was a pain scream, so I wanted to make sure, but my husband was already in there and she's fine. So child is not dying. I don't remember what I was saying. But yeah, I have them in so many different places, and I haven't found something that works perfectly for me all the time. Yeah. Yeah, it's a struggle. But yeah, so we'll have basically our alchemist like household spell book. You can think like, you know, hearth magic essentially. And this is going to be mostly welcome. So things that you're working with the spirits to do. So the way this works, right, is that when you are trying to command a spirit, right? There are different levels of witches, which involve like rituals of basically pulling their own magical essence from the magical realm into the real world. And the more of their essence they've pulled over, the more they can command higher leveled spirits, is sort of the vibe. But that only really applies for forcing them, right? Because the spirits, if you're trying to command them to do something that they're not naturally inclined to do, they're gonna fight you on it, right? And different spirits will have different capabilities and stuff. But if you are welcoming them to do something that they want to do or have no issue doing it, and you have generally been a more like benevolent like person to them, at least, right? Where there's like, I don't want to say like you make friends with them, because like that's not really how it works, but you could have them do more powerful stuff, but only if they want to. So like if you notice your like garden, all the plants in your garden are getting like really dry and they really need some water. Well, asking like the nature spirits to water your garden, they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, yeah, that totally needs to be watered. Let's do it, even if it's like a more powerful spell, right? If that makes sense. So more welcomed and could be higher powered if it's, we'll say natural, but something that they would be inclined to do, right? Like if you ask them to like burn a forest down, they're going to be like, no, sorry about that. So we'll have this one. We will have, I can't remember what it's called, but basically like beginner, which is like first level spell book. We can call it that. But it's essentially going to be like the publicized spells that they've translated from like all the secret societies bits and bobs and have allowed basically anyone who is a witch to use. Like anyone can get one of these, like it's a little primer kind of thing. So that'll be really like basic level, introductory, safe kinds of spells, right? Things that your novice witches would use, right? So then we'll have that. Could you convince a forest spirit to burn down a forest if you convince it that there's too much leaf litter or dead wood in that forest? So potentially, yeah, like convincing them isn't really a thing, right? Because you can't actually talk to them like that, right? Because like, again, no one is actually fluent in the language. So the only way they know how to talk to them is through asking them to do things. So like if you asked a spirit to like burn down a forest and it did need it, right? Like then they might be welcome to do that. But if you tried to force them, they probably wouldn't want to do it unless you were powerful enough to force them to do it. You know what I mean? It kind of would just depend. First level spell book, yeah. So we'll have that book. We will have we'll call it, I have like fancy, ridiculous names for these somewhere, but it's basically, we'll just call it Old Witch's Secret Grimoire. This is the one that's like, you know, a couple 100 years old and is what will hold the actual final bits and bobs. And so that will be for which involved in sealing temple. And then we will have, they're going to they're going to extract a grimoire at some point that I think is going to be where it's essentially a like apprentice grimoire. So there are some like notes that are in English, right? They're not fully, there's into the secret society when they created this. So there's notes that are somewhat in English. So it's a more easier notated grimoire, but only stuff that an apprentice would know. Yeah, yeah, that might be more likely to be done, right? So let's copy these. And there might be other ones we need to add at some point. Let's actually move this lower in terms of like difficulty. Okay, so we can classify the ones that we already have real quick. So we have pull the magic from the spirit room. Okay, pull magic. So this is going to be a really basic, like that is the, like a core spell. Especially for alchemists, because that's essentially how you get, here, where do I have it? That's essentially how you get magical ingredients. You have to pull the magical side of something into the real world. We will also, let me note this, we will also need a couple of ritual spells for, we'll just write witch making. There'll be better terminology for that, but. Oh. Yeah, so this is essentially going to be the pull magic spell. And the way that would work would be, move this a little bit. You would basically say, okay, like pull the magic of this like flower, and then it would have the magical properties and you could use it in potions and stuff. But if you don't, like things aren't inherently having their magic in the like human normal realm. So that would probably be in both the Household Alchemist spellbook and the First Level Witches spellbook. They might be slightly different. It's a row below. Start a fire where the witch is pointing. I feel like these would both make a lot of sense in like a hedge witch kind of vibe, like for starting a fire in the fireplace or whatever. Like those seem very basic. So let me pull those over. So that would be fire cause. And then for the disinflame, instead of causative, it's terminative. So we would have terminate. This would be start fire, put out fire. And then a lot of these are just more vague. I'm gonna, instead of like copying all of this over because that's boring, we have stirring this container, stop stirring, like all of this stuff that I think we've made so far makes sense for like the witches spellbook because they're sort of, I don't know, that sort of a thing. So I'll add those in later. So we can think about what other spells might be in these places, or we could just go straight to that final secret spell, which is going to be a thing. I don't think I have a note for it anywhere. Let me scroll through and look. Incorporate potion ingredients, make building warm. I feel like I've thought about how this spell would work before, but I don't remember. I don't know. But so essentially the spell, the big spell that they did is sealing a door, if that makes sense. But it needs to be like really complicated and powerful for some way, so we'll have to like work out like how that will work, because it can't just be like lock the door, right? But I feel like there could be some locking and unlocking spells could be pretty basic, like asking the spirit to like unlock something if it's like a mechanical kind of thing. We could also have some basic ones that are like, am I correct in assuming that your potion spells would go into the alchemy book? You mean like ones, so potion, like making potions themselves aren't like spells, like it's chemistry, it's just using magical ingredients. But like the household alchemist spellbook, whatever, like they would have a lot of like spells that would assist in baking potions and like various like small things like that that would like help manage a village or a community or stuff like that, would go there. And there might be some overlap between like what a fledgling beginner witch would learn, probably things that are the least likely to do damage, like the causing, like starting a fire or putting out a fire. Starting a fire might not actually be something that's in a basic witch's book, because if they're commanding spirits and they're commanding a spirit that's too powerful for them or something to like start a fire, that could backfire really easily. So like I could see that being like more of an advanced witches kind of spell potentially. So if anyone has ideas for some like basic stuff, we can throw those in here. But also anything that would maybe be a related or building block for sealing a door, because I could see locking and unlocking being a thing. So like lock door, unlock door could be a thing. Yeah, that could be a big part of it. Trying to think of what other spells might come up in the book from a plot perspective. There's definitely going to be stuff in this grimoire that's for watering. So we could have our weird spell that's like, basically like watering / maintaining greenhouses, telling the spirits to basically create the temperature and humidity within the different greenhouses based off like the plants that are planted there, to have like, you know, maybe they have a tropical greenhouse or a more like seasonal one, or, you know, whatever. They'd have spells for managing that around the estate that this, you know, old witch, past witch would have had. Let's pull that together, unless people come with good starting objects, because we had a spell for this before, but we've changed it a little bit. So what we used to have, if I can find this. Okay, we had. Okay, so we had a copula in here, which we no longer have, right? We don't do it like that anymore. But essentially what this spell was doing was, "O spirit, I command them, until their happiness being happy, create warm rain onto the plants within the greenhouse." Was roughly what it meant. But I think we can simplify this a lot now, especially now that things are changed. Welcome, Jeffrey. So location, yeah, so it would still be the location relevant to the greenhouse. So that part would still be part of the gloss. We would still have this Talic. What's that again? Action bounded by a condition. Yeah, so we won't need that anymore. So the way that we were handling conditional was just saying it's a future thing that's not now. So I think that would be future. And then within, which we would have, let's see, this is the locative marker to indicate how the verb action is done. Within container locative. Okay, so this would go before the greenhouse. This would go like there, right? Or here. So within the greenhouse in the locative. And then we would have, I think, is that, did we have, let me look. I feel like there was another version of this, of those cases that would go without the .n. And go up. No. Yeah, so we have the locative marker. Yeah, the noun case is what I'm thinking of. But we already applied that, so we don't need that again because it's supposed to be self-contained, I think. So we don't need this anymore. Wow, we've changed so much since we were, because like this spell was the one we created where then we were like, okay, we need to understand this language better. And we started going down to actual like creating a full grammar document thing. And I don't know, it's kind of cool to see how much it's changed. So plants, which would be like plant plural, which I think plural goes before. We can verify that. But plant plural, proximal, so this plant or these plants. So warm, wet sky, so create rain for these plants in the future. No, future, no. We already have future up here. This is the conditional. So create rain for the plants within the greenhouse, and then our conditional, we had happies earlier, was a stative verb or predicative verb, I think, third person animate. So let's go up where we have the adjective section and figure out how we're going to say that now. Where are adjectives? Okay. So, happy plant, which you can tell where some of these examples came from. So, happy's plant. Happy's is via. Okay. So, future happy's plant or happy plant. Okay. So, we can copy that back down into our grimoires. So, happy's being a verb, future. And we didn't need reflective because happy's is already a reflexive verb. So we don't need that. We don't need the copula. So this is just they being happy, like they be happy, I guess. They happy. So until they be happy. I think that makes sense, right? So specifically this would be create warm rain to the plants within the greenhouse. Hold on, more screaming. I don't know what they're doing. I really don't know what they're doing, but husband is dealing with it. I don't know. They're playing rough on their bed. She might have like thrown herself against the side of her bed or something. Did I already say hello to you, Jeffrey? I don't remember. But yes, okay. We were here, so plant, plural, proximal, create, warm, wet sky, future happies, and then I need to look up what the actual abbreviation for this is. I would place your create warm rain in quotes and or italics. This part. Boom. Okay. Copy that here. And then let's look up that third person animate. I feel like scrolling is super annoying. I apologize. PL, yeah. Plural, whatever. Yep. Not possession, not adjectives. Pronouns. Oh, I didn't include all the pronouns. That's why. Okay, so it would be animate, but third person, I think. Okay. So I think 3x animate, happy's future, that. I think that is about correct. And then if we wanted to create a simpler one that is just make the plants and the greenhouse happy, which again, this would only work if you were like trusting and working with the spirits, right? So I'm not positive this would be in there, but it would be more vague. Make the plants happy. So these plants. So we wouldn't need this anymore. So future happies. Future would go at the end. So make them happy. So happies is already a verb. Happies, these plants. Does that make sense? It's sort of like saying happies them. Like, it's not quite make happies, but like please the plants, maybe. Might be the way to translate that. Please the plants in the greenhouse. And then you would have to trust the spirits to want to listen to you and want to do it. Thinking ahead, how is the code going to determine that happies is a word and not an abbreviation? Yeah, I'll have to figure that out at some point. Right now, things that are capital are the abbreviations, and things that are lowercase are directly translated. But if I do a string split where I'm just splitting it on the brackets, then having a different delimiter wouldn't really help with that. I'll have to think about that. But yeah, and it wouldn't match any of the grammatical words, which I'd look for first. And then if it's not in there, it would be something else. I think it'll just be the capitalization. I think that'll be easy from a string parsing perspective. Yes. Probably don't even need future actually either. Please, these plants in the greenhouse. Yeah. And then I think based off that, we'd probably have a spell from the here, which would just be please these plants. Which would be like a simple gardening kind of spell. Spirit, and happyify these plants. Exactly, Alan. Exactly. And happify. That's a great word. I do like that. I'm gonna remove it from here. We'll just delete it. Can I not just delete what's in it? Lame. All right. I feel like what else would make sense to do? What would be good for shenanigans? Because the other thing I'm gonna have to look up, and we could try to do this intentionally too, but things that could easily look like other things. But that's like not really something we do at this stage. That's more in the like when we're coming up with individual words. But yeah, so we're done with that. So other things that would make sense to have. What would a beginner witch have for a spell? Probably like simple things for use around the academy. So it could be things like turn the page. Could maybe be a spell. Turn the page. Maybe like dry the ink. Trying to think of like, are there spirits for artificial objects or non-natural phenomena? So technically the spirits are really just, it's the wind, and the wind is like the spirits. Like those are the natural spirits of the world are the wind, but then they sort of infuse and touch and work with all the other things. So you're asking the winds to do stuff for you essentially. So like if you want it to like unlock the door, it would be the wind kind of moving through just within that location to like trigger the mechanisms in the right way would sort of be the vibe there. Like obviously drying the ink, like the wind could do that. It can like swirl around to like stir stuff. It can probably move small objects, but anything that you can imagine like a wind spirit essentially could do. But that's the only types of spirits that there really are. Open the book. Yeah. Open the book. Close the book. So you could ask a spirit to de-rust my plow blade, but there's no spirit of plow blades, just a spirit of oxidation. Yeah, like there's definitely like limits to what it could reasonably do. It's definitely more like obviously it can control like it's weather phenomena, right? So like the winds are like of major winds. Yeah, probably not de-rust assault blade. Yeah. But like you can imagine that like Like, if you think of all the distinct winds and imagine if those were more of, like, spirit entities, so, like, your ITCZ, like, right, that major wind might be one very large, powerful spirit, and its domain is where it flows essentially, right? So, like, when the monsoons come to this island, that major monsoon wind that comes to bring all those heavy rains, that's sort of like one spirit entity. And then you'll have, like, smaller winds that are, like, you might have the winds that, like, go up and down the mountain sides into the valley. You might have the winds that move down through this valley or whatever, that sort of thing. So you asked for shenanigans. Spirit, lift me up by my kite. Yeah, that could be a thing. I feel like that would not be a first level spell though, because that would be dangerous. But I could see there being maybe in like the apprentices some sort of like lift my kite or some sort of like thing like that, right? But like you could use these for sailing probably could be a thing. Should it be maybe like I don't know exactly which book it would be, but like blowing wind into the sails could be a thing. So a tornado would be a very hyper angry spirit. Yeah. Yeah, and like we're not gonna get into the whole like all the like behind the scenes stuff. But yeah, essentially yes. Oh man, the wind spirit of the ITCC is like freaking world building. Yeah. Yeah, you can definitely see where like spending too much time looking at air circulation maps had some impacts here. But okay, let's gloss some of these out. So locking. Let's go to our verbalizing morphemes. Tenses. Action morphemes. Okay. So for locking something, that could be just use the lock, right? And it could be instrumental. And then if you were asking it to unlock though, you're still using the lock. So how would you tell them? So use the lock. You could, I guess you could have a causative. So like the door opens, use the lock. Could be it. Thank you for joining, Jonathan. Hopefully, I don't know if we're going to do this next Sunday, but we'll definitely do it in 2 Sundays. I kind of want to do it next Sunday. We might do that. Maybe next Sunday, definitely the one after that. But yeah, I could instead do something like cause locked or terminate the locked state. Like it could be more like the state of being locked, like something that is locked. Which is more like an adjective. Yeah, the lock is not a natural based thing. How would you explain to spirit what a lock is in terms of natural objects? I mean, I feel like they would have concepts of like preventing access to something or sealing away. Like they would have a concept of that, and we might define that as it locked, but like that's probably not what it like really means or necessarily. That's just kind of what it is used for. So maybe it could be something more that sort of means along the lines of like seal or unseal the door. So it could be causing, referring back to the subject. Could be a reflexive verb. For a word that essentially means like something that is like a block or something along those means that could then, yeah. Because like lock yourself No, that wouldn't make sense in this case. The reflexive, because that only works for the spirits essentially doing it themselves or of themselves in this case. So yeah, I kind of like the idea of using the causative or terminative, because otherwise that'll be a really weird spell to use the instrumentative. Yeah, because like use the sealing mechanism. It's accessible. It's not accessible. I mean, we could do something like that actually. Cause the lock to be opened. Cause the lock to be open. Open caused. Close caused the lock. Yeah. 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 Okay, so let's do that, I think. So we would have cause and then we could either say like open or like accessible or passable maybe. Cause this and then lock, but that could really like lock would be the same word that would mean like there'd probably be a more general term. So cause that lock to be open or the opposite, terminate the passability of this lock kind of thing. I think that makes sense. I like the idea of like passable or like being able to pass like something that is passed through, like the passage. So like cause passage this lock would sort of mean like open the lock, I guess. And then lock could mean something like it could just be like barrier, you know what I mean? Like or small barrier, something like that to compound it out. I think that makes sense. So then turn the page. That's interesting. That could be use the page. Like, what do you do with the page in a book? You turn it, right? That could have an instrumentative kind of thing. So it could literally just be page, which would, mean like paper, something, whatever. Is that what it is? Turn the page. It could be literally as simple as that. Use the page means turn it. Liquid, and then terminates ink. So dry, the ink would be like stop the like liquid state of the ink would be dry, the ink, I think. And then open and close the book. It could be a similar thing as the one for the lock, where it's like allow passage to the book or don't allow passage to the book could simply also be used as like open and close. I could see that. Turn the page could also be move the page. That's true. Could be move instead. So we could copy this. And instead of proximal, this would just be like book, whatever book is. Dry the ink or evaporate / takes moisture from the ink. Yeah, that's what it would essentially mean. Add the page. That would be an interesting way to do it, especially, although I don't know how they would have that like language-wise. Terminate passage to the book. Yeah. Okay. I think that makes sense. Okay. So then I don't know the exact use case of these, so I'm not entirely sure what the glosses would be for that. Yeah, because like looking for further towards like sealing the door, stopping passage, right? Like stop passage to it, like lock it or whatever. That's not quite what happens. It's a lot more of a complicated thing. Like it can't just be block passage, right? It has to apply a very high degree of like sealing it to prevent anyone from ever accessing it. Hello, Redib. What are we doing? We are coming up with glosses for spells. That's what we're doing right now. So like, I mean, okay, here, let's play around with this for a minute though, because they'd be trying to figure out where the spell is. So they would potentially be like looking at a lot of different options for this. So we do have the simple option for doing like stop or create passage to something. Would be super basic. Hello, Jake. Thank you for popping in. We're just glossing spells. But we could also do something that like it could be more intense, where it could be like remove the ability to like ever enter this before. So like it could be something where there's like a future case of like access. So it could be like never. We could have a way to say that. And then, you know, sealing it and somehow would be the actual verb. Sealing the door could be block access. Yeah, it needs to be like, it needs to have more to it though. Could be something where there could be multiple parts of it, right? Like there could be parts where it could backfire on anyone who tries to open it. Could be an additional thing, like seal it, and if anyone tries to open, blow them up. I don't know. Something, right? Where there would be consequences to anyone who's like trying to access it. Which this is a conditional. How did I talk about doing a conditional? This would be the main verb. And this would be the conditional. Because it can't just be a future thing. But it would be a future thing because it's not currently happening. So we'd have to imply ordering. Oh, I didn't think about that with the causal stuff. Causal grammar. Because this would definitely be future. And it could be like inceptive, and if anyone starts to try to open the door, right? In the future case that someone starts to open the door, blow them up. Although you could just have that be one of those things that's implied. It wouldn't make sense to like blow them up until someone tries to open the door, right? Like that wouldn't make any sense. So that could just be something where it's inferred, where you have something like incep. I can't remember what. I don't remember what this thing is. But like the inceptive one in the future, and that would be like passage. If someone tries to like use, so instrumental passage use inceptive future, maybe, then blow them up, cause explosion or something. Cause explosion, maybe. There should be a loophole somewhere that there is a narrow technicality that allows the door to open. So there is a way, of course, to open it. And it essentially is going to involve like undoing the spell, which is why they need to open it up and understand exactly the nature of how it's open. But like there's going to be a loophole, might not be the right way to put it, but like through understanding it, one can figure out how to unravel the spell, essentially. Yes. And this might even be more complicated if there is something that it's triggering something like mechanical or chemical. So it could be more like use the potion. Like if someone tries to enter this, like activate the potion that's been laid here or something like that. Activate potion could be something like that. Are the wind spirits guarding this sealed door? No, not like that. They've caused something with their magic. So there's like both a mechanical aspect to it and a like they couldn't just naturally like cause an explosion, right? That wouldn't be a spell that would work, but it would be more like maybe there's explosives under it, so it'd be like trigger it. And there's going to be a very complicated mechanism for how this spell has lasted so long, because typically they don't last very long because you can't command a spirit to do something for a long period of time. So whatever they do has to be something that is then self-sustaining through the combination of the spell, probably having to have commanded an extremely powerful spirit to do it, and also a combination of like there's like going to be a potion aspect of it too, so it's both done through like a chemical reaction to seal the door and also through something through the spirits doing it. So I'm not entirely sure what that would be, but coming up with lots of options is at least a good starting point because that's kind of the direction they would go with trying to break through. Could have something that we could do with the language. We could have something that's like merging the door with the wall so that it's no longer a passage. Like that could be an approach. So like, well, the problem with the recursive spell is that the spirit would have to keep doing it. And your command over the spirit is only going to last so long. So like at the point that it wears out, they're going to stop doing it. So you can ask them to like stir the pot and they'll keep doing it. But if you were to walk away within like, depending on how powerful the spirit is and how powerful your command was, within like 20 minutes to an hour, they'd probably stop because their command would wear off kind of thing. Merge the door with the building could be a way to do it. So there'd probably need to be a way of saying like one with the building or part of the building. Yeah, as a statement. So like, or that could be done as merge, however we would build the door, and then width. Do we have a thing for width? I feel like, is that like ablative or with the door? I feel like we have something for that. No. We could have it like be merging like into the door. That could be a thing. So it could be into dative. Merge it to. Yeah, we could do dative. That might actually work. Merge it to the door. The building, right? Merge door to the building. That could be something. The door itself could be made from stone or stone clad to blend in. Yeah, there will be things like that also, that affect it. And also there's, like, people guarding it too, so, like, those have to be dealt with, like, there's physical people that guard it. Okay, so it can be merged. So we have stopping passage. We could basically have something that's like, make this immovable, right? Like, that could potentially be a spell. Let's let that sit for a minute. So let's go back up here. So small things that could be used to unlock things. We already have the basic lock and unlock the door. Opening and closing the book. Household alchemist spellbook. What other basic things? Let's go back up here for a minute and let that simmer. What other basic things would a basic, like, hedge witch, household, village alchemist type of person do? They'd probably have, let's see, pull magic spell, that's for the potioning. We already have the other notes that we've done before with, like, stirring and combining the ingredients. Putting out the fire would definitely make sense. Something I haven't thought too hard on. So the problem for tests for poisons or anything like that is that the spirits can't talk back to you. There could be a conditional thing of, like, doing something if something is harmful. There could be a spell that's like that. So I think there'd be a spell that's something like, cut off this plant or something. Like, some way to, like if I was holding a plant and you're telling it to, like, sever it or something. And then you could have something that's like, cut off this plant if it is not harmful for me or something like that, right? Like, you could do something like that where, like, oh, I think I can eat this, and you could put your hand on it and say the spell, and if it's safe and this you can trust the spirit to tell you whether it's safe or not, right? Then it would sever it for you and then you would have it. That could be interesting. So if we were going to do that, cut off this plant. Cut might be a base verb because it's not using a tool or anything to do it, right? So, like, maybe sever or cut. Sever would be base. And then you would have some form of, like, plant. Probably this plant because it's whatever you're touching. So sever this plant, and then we could have the conditional, which would be future. So how would we say if it's harmful for me? Probably would have to be some sort of, like, adjective, like harming me. Like, let's go up to what's our adverbial markers? In a way to cause damage. No, I don't think that's quite right either. Where do we have adjectives? Oh, here we go. We don't want comparative adjectives. We want a basic adjective. So either a predicative verb, Oh, okay. Enjoy your inspiration. Have fun with your world stuff. Have a good afternoon to you too. Um, I feel like harm would be a thing. So harms me. So this person, this one. So harm reflexive, first person singular. So me. I feel like that might be the way we'd go about that. Where are we? Here we go. So harm, reflexive, me. Is that the right ordering though? Verbs, me. I think so. Harms me, reflexive. Okay, yeah, yeah. I think it makes sense to do. Okay. I like the idea of in this spell book having a lot more spells that are very trusting. You know what I mean? Because you would assume that you're just welcoming spirits to do stuff. You're building this like very like, reciprocal kind of relationship with them. So I could see there being spells like leading them somewhere, like having a spell that's like lead me to water. Lead me to water. There could be ones that are like lead me home if you were to get lost. Because it would have to be stuff that's repeatable, right? Like you couldn't actually get something super specific, like take me to this person. I wonder if so something that I hadn't really thought of is a messaging aspect, if there would be a way to have a spirit carry your words to someone. Because that could be an interesting use case of this language, which might make sense. I could see that being a more complicated spell because it's further distance and they're having to carry your words somewhere else, but they'd have to know who to send them to. And how would you tell them who to send the words to? Unless they could learn names. If a spirit could learn a name. Like if you just said what their name is in the normal language, if that would be a way. Because like they can hear the spell language, but can they hear normal things? Are they aware of human language? You know what I mean? Let's start with carry my words. Because I feel like that makes sense conceptually, at least. I think. Okay, so lead me to water. So this would be whatever the direction is for like towards. I would somehow encode your name for the spirits, but I don't know how you do that. You know what I mean? Like this isn't something where you can like create words unless you like teach the spirits something. Like I wonder if you could like introduce yourself to the spirits and then they know your name. That's an interesting concept. And maybe like household alchemists would do that where they would teach they would teach the spirits their name or tell the spirits their name is just like a nice thing, but like because in order to command them you have to know their name. So I could see like the academic witches not wanting to give the spirits their names because it's like dangerous, right? Because they would have this concept of like the name, like you need to have a spirit's name to have power over them. So maybe they have this fear that if you give a spirit your name, they could have power over you, although that wouldn't actually be a thing. That would be an interesting concept. Why did that go so far back? Edge witches. Their name. And witches would not. Ooh, if I've learned anything from D&D is to never give a fae your name. Yeah. But again, like, if these types of witches only have this very positive, like, non-forceful relationship with the spirits, they could trust to give their names, you know what I mean? Whereas, like, so that would be an interesting way to highlight that dichotomy, is that, like, they could potentially, like, teach the, like, spirits their name, and I could see that being, like, the first thing at the front of this book that's carried down, and then also how to teach someone else, like, their name. So it could be like, so the spell could be like, to remember I am name, right? Or remember this is name, right? And so it could be considered like a really horrible thing to teach a spirit, like an academy witch's name. Like, that could be like a thing, you know? Maybe powerful witches are given a name in this language by the spirits. The problem with that is the spirits can't talk. So, like, they would have no way of doing that. Yeah, and the thing is, it would be individual spirits, right? So, one of the other concepts here is that a spirit only has so much magic. So the names of spirits are closely guarded, because, like, the ones that are going to be in your, like, basic beginner witch book are going to be pretty weak spirits because so many people know their names. But anyone that's, like, more of a experienced witch, like, they're going to have, like, spirit names that they know that they don't share with other people, like, it's secret. And then witches would have, you know, the same thing. So, like, this household alchemist, whatever, spell book, they would have the name of some of the local spirit, like, wind spirits near there, and probably no one else knows their name. So they can teach them names, but other spirits wouldn't, right? It's like you'd be teaching them to individual spirits. Maybe the witches can give themselves a name in this language. I could see that, yeah. Like, it wouldn't necessarily have to be their real name per se, as long as the spirit could recognize it. So maybe or academy witches have, like, cover names that they use to give the spirits to refer to themselves, which would be really funny, actually. Oh my gosh, that would actually be delightfully hilarious. Because it would have to be, like, again, they're not fluent in this language, so it would have to be, like, maybe they would have, like, a way to say, like, some words, and then they add, like, witch to it, or, like, you know, person that uses magic or whatever. So it could be, like, they'd have to use words that they know, so they'd be really limited on what the kind of cover terms they can give themselves would be. So it could be, like, descriptor witch something, right? Okay. So how would we make a spell like that to tell them to remember something? It could be memory cause. And in theory, you could tell them to forget something, but, like, would that actually work? Yeah, like, there's gonna be things like that, Greg, where there's gonna be, like, things that could mean different things in different orders, that once we get, like, the actual literal spells and can start looking for those, or intentionally making those, you know? Or if you, like, pronounce it wrong or something. So it could be cause memory. And then, oh, how would this work? How would this work with this grammar? So cause memory, and the thing that you're creating a memory of is the name. So it could be, we use the pronoun, and then we could add something that's like whatever the name is. Like maybe as an adjective, right? Like kind of creating an adjective from it. Commit to memory, name. This name, name vocative. Name, my name. We would use possessive, which I think is possessive. My. Okay, yeah, and it does go right before. So this would be, where were we? My name. And then name vocative. Where would name vocative go? Would that go before? Or would it go after? Things that should be incorporated but can't go after. I think it would go before. So I think it would be name vocative. And then obviously you would have the like command bit at the beginning, right? Commit to memory, my name. Yeah. Cause memory, my name. Yeah. I think that makes sense. And then if you were trying to say someone else's name, the name, memory, cause, speaker, exclusive, singular, name. This person's name. So it'd be like their name. I wonder if you could put proximal on this. Because the name isn't proximal, though. The person is proximal. So I'm not sure if you could use that there. Yeah. I feel like that would probably be sufficient, especially if you're trusting them, the spirits, enough to be like, this person's name is so-and-so. You know what I mean? I feel like it'd be pretty obvious to a benevolent to you spirit. I think that makes sense. Third person pronoun would make sense. Yeah. Their name. Although they probably wouldn't want to like. Would they want to? Would that be something they'd teach beginner witches? I feel like sending messages would be more advanced. So the beginner witches probably wouldn't have it. Let's just do real quick, like, let's just do a general, like, advanced witches spell book or something. Academy, higher level, I guess. And that's probably where it would go there. Sending is the most broken D&D spell, so yeah, sending messages should be advanced. Yeah. Yeah. And it would be limited too, right? Like it would only be able to go across so far of a distance depending on how powerful the spirit was and what their domain was. So it's not like you command them to carry something super far away. You know what I mean? It would still be limited, but like, you know, I could imagine like your like an advanced witch like bossing around their apprentice. You know what I mean? I could imagine it being used for that. So this would probably be witch, and then whatever like code name / descriptors they use. Would they call it a name then? Or would they use a different word for that? Would be a question. Let's see. Let's probably go here. Yeah, that's pretty broken. Yeah. It's kind of funny. I mean, I feel like it's funny when people actually follow the rules with it more so than just like, oh, I can cast it, whatever, it's fine. And they don't make, I don't know. Like, I've known people that DMs that will allow you to cast that spell and you could just summarize what you're going to say. And as long as it's not too detailed, they'll be like, hey, you can do it in 25 words. But I feel like they should make people do it at least as something. But yeah, it's kind of a lot. So then they would both be able to send messages. So carry my words would be take my words or carry my words. To carry, I feel like that sounds like a base verb. To carry. I feel like it's probably a base verb. Carry, base. My words. My words. And then it would be dative. Hey, I'm streaming. You can't come in here. I'm streaming. You can't come in here. No, you need to go back downstairs. No, Aubrey, I'm streaming. No, please go. Let me lock the door. Forgot to lock the door my second time coming back in here. Okay, so... Oh, you do make them say it and it's always hilarious? Yeah. Could there be a more general broadcast my words type of command? Huh. I could maybe see that being a thing. To do an announcement, like broadcast my words throughout the building. Broadcast my words throughout the building. I could see that being a thing, like especially for like announcements, you know? So carry my words, and then am I thinking to or towards? Towards? Oh, we were looking that up anyway. So let's look that up real quick. Nope. This would be like locative or lative. I think this would be lative. Yes, to or towards. So this. Tons of scrolling. And this is lative, which shares a marker with locative. And then this would just be like liquid. Then like lead. Something like that. Lead me. Actually, you probably need lead. You probably wouldn't need to say lead me. Lead towards water. So this would be carry my words to. Oh, and it would be a proper noun, which can't be incorporated anyway. Yeah. I'll have to think about the specifics of the broadcasting, because it would probably have to be like, it would have to be pretty powerful because you need a speaker that could then carry your words throughout like a space, but it wouldn't be able to be like a very large space or very far away space. So like you could probably have a really powerful witch do a broadcast through a building, but that's like you wouldn't be able to do like a city-wide thing unless like I don't know, you were like the most powerful witch in existence commanding the most powerful spirit in existence or something. You know what I mean? Um Carry my words towards. Let me look up this bit on incorporation. Should be wherever I talk about proper nouns. I feel like there could be a spell for that. But I don't think that would probably end up being something in a spell book because, like, how would the animals even know to follow? You know what I mean? So I could see, like, someone who's actually fluent could use a spell like that, but I'm not sure if it's something that would end up in a spell book. Um, where do I have this bit on incorporation? Da 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 da. Proper nouns. Where do I have it? Let me just search. Neither can direct objects. Okay, a mere evocative goes before. Not the proper nouns. Right. It can't be incorporated, but can it be marked? Is the question. How do language normally do that? So if a proper noun can't be incorporated, can it still be marked with like the locative and stuff? Where'd that go? Yeah, like could we put a proper noun here? Or would it need to be like the person, name, vocative, and then this would be the like speaker, exclusive, singular, right? Towards their location, them being this name, and this would go before this part because it's part of that. Yes, Polish marks are proper nouns in all cases. But could it be marked vocative and locative at the same time? I feel like this structure probably makes the most sense. I think so. But then if you had a broadcast spell, it would be through the building. So like building, locative, and then whatever through is. I don't actually know what it is. Let's look it up. Above, within. I mean, we could use within or through. So through the building or within the building. Okay. Okay, that helps, Greg. I'm trying to think. Around, not around, because that would be like outside. So I think either within or through. I feel like through would make the most sense. Through building. And it could be like this building, right? Potentially. I think that makes sense. Okay. Okay. Yeah. All right. So I am going to probably end this stream here. I need to figure out if I'm going to stream next Sunday. And either we'll make more spells like this, or if I have time to create the code to store them, we can actually start like defining the nouns and stuff that we don't have and like storing them in the code. If I figured that out yet, we'll see if I've gotten that far. If not, we'll do it 2 Sundays from now. But I think that catches us up pretty well. Like, we're making good progress here. Like, we're doing this stuff. And I'll look up all the names for these spell books too when I get a chance. Because I should be able to find access to those names somewhere going through all of my stuff. But yeah, keep an eye out for the stream links when those come out. Definitely 2 weeks from now, maybe 1 week from now. I think the spell design is more viewable than code writing. Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. Like, the point that I did it in the code, like, it would still be like this gloss would basically be a variable. So we would like give it a name. There would be the gloss. And then it could be commented to have the description of it and whatever details. And then you would just put that in the creating a spell thing. And then you would have it output the spell. And then we would have those in some sort of place. Although, again, honestly, like, maybe we don't do it in the code at this point. Like, I don't know, like, maybe we just put the individual words in the code to start. And then as we get further, figure out if we need to do the full translation thing. I don't know. That might be sufficient. And then we would just define them like this and build them manually. Wouldn't be the end of the world. But yes, anyway, I think this is where I'm going to call it for today. I have a lot to do for this week. I feel like I was going to say something. Oh yeah, if you haven't already seen the stuff about the World Building Festival, I have a video about that and it's on the website sharing like what it is and what we're doing. It's going to be a blast. There's a lot of fun people in the community that are trying it out for me, or not for me, with me or separately to me within the same festival. Yeah, I don't know, because we're not all on the same streams, but it's going to be fun. You could also push Patreon. I have Patreon. I don't know. I feel like it's weird to advertise that. I don't know how to do it. I don't know. I do Patreon stuff. It's fun. We're building Pillar World. And at some point, I'll have to do more world building for this world probably too. So we'll see. But yes. All right. Goodbye, everybody. Have a good weekend. And if you think of any other spell ideas, like throw them in the comments, or if you're in the Discord, you can throw them in somewhere in the ConLanging section. Some ideas if you think of some. And we can note those for next time. But yeah, I will see you all either next week or the week after. Goodbye.